maybe you've had an evolution around, I used to think this and now I'm slowly starting to see that, maybe I can incorporate a little bit of pause and rest in how I work. I know for me personally, I simply do not have the same amount of energy that I had. And believe you me, I'm very intentional about creating energy, right? So I'm really careful about my exercise. I'm really careful about my rest. I'm boring. I like to go to bed when there's still a 9 on my clock. Somewhere between 9, I don't like if it gets over to 10, right? Which means it's pretty boring. It means that if I'm going out, last week I went out for a dinner, it was at 6:30 and I was great, I can be home by 9, right? This is how I'm now thinking. Now, it does not sound very exciting, but it means that I can be really intentional about how I rest. Was that me 20 years ago? Was it me 15 years ago? No, probably not even 10. But I find that as I'm now getting into another age and stage of my own personal development, my body needs different stuff. And what I'm also starting to realize is that when I integrate rest properly, I think better. And therefore, things don't feel grindy. They don't feel like I am literally walking through mud, and they just don't feel so difficult, right? So it's not the most exciting thing, but it just means that structure and routine certainly creates a little bit more energy. Yeah, 4, but can easily default to a 2. I like it, Amber. So thank you. You can see that we've got there, a little bit of that range even for ourselves. All right. So I want to talk to you now about this thing called the high performance trap. And when I was preparing for this masterclass last week, I was thinking, where did we get, like, why? I know from a personal perspective how I got into this high performance trap. It was, the era of you can be and do anything, you can have it all. I am, that generation where, unlike my mother and my grandmother's generation, where they pretty much had one key, two key roles in their life, the dream that I was sold, which has come at a significant cost, is you can absolutely have whatever you want. But it means that, for many of us, we've been caught in this high performance trap. Um, I grew up with, I really wanted Nikes when I was a kid, and I don't think I got like a pair of branded runners. I used to have the Dunlop volleys, which could go Dunlop volleys. I had those for many years, but I reckon my first pair of branded runners were not even Nikes, like they were Reeboks, and I had to plead, and save all my pocket money for those Reeboks. And I remember them and I loved them. I didn't get the just do it, but I certainly grew up with that message. Did anybody else grow up with just do it? Put your hand up if you did, or give me a little reaction. Yeah, just do it, right? Nike still use that as their logo. Red Bull, I don't love energy drinks at all. No disparaging if you do. You don't even have to say if you do, right? But I do remember that the little logo, what was the little logo under Red Bull? Does anyone remember? Unmute, please, if you know it, and just tell us. What is it? Red Bull gives you.
Is it wings?
It's wings. Thank you, Simone. And hello. Red Bull gives you wings, man. Red Bull makes you invincible, so much so that you could actually fly, right? So then I also grew up with this. In my generation, it was the first time we started seeing these kinds of energy drinks hit the market. And then, of course, Apple. I do love an Apple device. I'm not an Android person. I've got my watch, I've got my things, right? This is the first Apple logo back in the late 70s. Apple, their whole motto has been be different. And you can see that in terms of their play to market, they want to be the first. They're bringing out a new phone. It's so we buy them. I know it, and so we buy all the devices and things which cost a fortune. But they want to be different. They are constantly looking to increase and to make it better. So much so that now it's almost impossible to live without them. Right. So we've all bought into that. Yes, either go tech or woe is us because of the tech, but it's there. But when I was thinking about where did we get into this high performance trap, there are messages everywhere. And these are just the big ones that I kind of grew up with as I was reflecting, along with my own kind of personal experience of you can be and do whatever you like, just put the hard work in. The hard work in, of course, is about high performance. Now, I must say today's not about don't work hard. You'll never ever hear me saying that because it's a key value for me. It doesn't need to be for you, but it is for me. You'll never hear me saying that. But I think there has to be some equilibrium and balance that comes into it so it doesn't end up harming us, which it can. I reckon that not only have we had these three key messages and very similar ones. You could probably think of other ones. And if you have any other examples that come to mind, pop them in the chat. But I reckon many of us have had the you can do more, we can work harder, we can streamline, we can be more efficient, we can be more effective. We've had tech and obviously now AI coming in, which are helping us to work better, maybe smarter, maybe not so smarter actually. But let's face it, no one's ever celebrating low performance. I've never had someone brief me and say, hey, Rita, can you come in and run a low performing team session? No, everyone wants the high performance, right? Everyone wants to know how do we break through to the next frontier, the next barrier to get us working better, smarter, harder for that reward. So that reward is either, and when we're doing it at an organizational level, it's both intrinsic and extrinsic, right? We're getting that satisfaction. We get the adrenaline, we get the dopamine, we get, the accolades. So that self-actualization piece comes in, we get the promotion. Organizationally, and hopefully that collective equates to better results organizationally. So it's no wonder that it is an absolute trap for us, because even though there is a cost to it, which I want to go into in a second, there's a very, very sexy and enticing allure that we can buy into and become completely lost in and trapped in when we do subscribe to this notion of high performance and relentless. Like it's this pursuit of high performance at all costs, which is not what I advocate. So we are rewarded for output. And it can be tempting to always be on, and you can see, I'll let you read the slide, but we have now no bounds with time zones in terms of how we work. In the early or in the 90s, 2000s, when I was starting to do some international work, we weren't bounded as such, because you'd pick up the phone, but you'd have to kind of manually look up what time is it in Malaysia or what time is it in Japan or whatever it was, wherever I might have been doing some stuff. I could get on a plane and be disconnected for 15 hours, 13 hours, 8 hours. I can't do that now. So we're constantly on the text there. This go hard notion kind of continues to fuel, and it really means that we can keep up to whatever level we want without any bounds. And this is why we've got to then learn to kind of put up that handbrake in terms of what we need. And the handbrake, that pause, is going to be different for different people. So some of us are going to want to pull up that handbrake sooner. Some of us is like, no, I can kind of continue to, drive along here. I don't need that handbrake on yet. But as it says there on that slide, the cost is not always visible until it is. And often when we notice that it is, it's harder, right, to come back from that. I'm interested. Little personal reflection. I'd love you to pop it in the chat, or I'd actually love people to unmute because we're a little group today. What high performance traps do you experience or observe for yourself and in your organizations? What high performance traps do you experience or observe? I'd love someone to unmute if you can, please. Anu, was that an unmute?
Yeah. So I was just reflecting what was the trap. And earlier when I joined the organization, I was working way lot harder and getting more and more work to do. And often that ends up with a compliment that you can do and you're the only one who can do it, which used to energize me to do more and more. And then I reached a point where I realized that I'm working harder than everyone else, still not gaining anything more than others, than breaking myself.
Yeah.
So that was a realization for me, which I'm very conscious now.
Anu, you've touched on something. I've just written it down. I hope everyone else has picked this one up too, but you touched on identity, because when you have others that are recognizing that in you, gosh, that feels good.
Yeah.
It's hard not to be tempted by that, because you know that you're doing a good job, and then others are recognizing it. So our shoulders, metaphorically, they get a little broader, and we stand up a little taller, and we go, yeah, I can do this. Load me up. I can do it. How good am I? Like, I'm feeling it and you're feeling it. You feel strong. They also feel strong in you because they know that they can delegate. And again, none of this is necessarily bad. I'm not advocating for low or poor performance, but we've got to watch that as we're loading it up, where do you reckon that saying comes that the straw that broke the camel's back? It wasn't the one little straw, right? It was because over time the camel doesn't realize that we're just loading it up until that final piece of straw goes on and breaks it, right? And
also,
yeah.
sorry, the point that you said about identity, right? I used to feel so good hearing those good messages. And when I don't have anything that's giving me those, messages coming, I used to feel like, am I not good enough? Am I not productive?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was playing the other way too. When
Oh, I
I'm
love that.
resting, I used to have that guilt.
Yeah, I love that, Anu. Thank you, because that's a really important one around identity and delegation. What about others? What high performance traps do you experience or do you observe? Doesn't need to be in your organization. Maybe it's a colleague, maybe it's another family member in a different organization.
Reese, I was going to say from my observation, sometimes it's over delivering or over engineering, or kind of that wanting everything to be perfect because you kind of don't know the limits.
Yeah.
Mm.
So perfectionism, that's good. Yeah. And the limits, do you reckon sometimes those limits are, if you're not getting that feedback, do you think sometimes it plays into the, well, no, I need to keep going until I hear something positive? Do you reckon it's that?
Absolutely. Yep. Agree.
Yeah. So that's a good one. That's an important one if you are leaders. And particularly if you have staff members that might have a bit of a tendency towards perfectionism, just let them know how they're going. So you can help them pull up that handbrake, right? So then they don't kind of keep going and going. Good. All right. Maybe one more if anyone's got one. Other high performance traps that you experience or observe. Yeah, Simone, hello.
Hello. If you're working in an ambitious organization, that you don't get to the ambition. That's the whole point. And the other reflection is if you've been a good manager or a leader and you have a really good, amazing team, I have had staff say, like, they love working in my team or whatever. And so you can kind of see that they're overperforming because they're wanting to make you happy, so it's that combination of providing the right feedback and environment, but they're actually, you've got to reflect and make sure that they don't get burnt out themselves.
So do you reckon that's it's a loyalty because you've been able to sell them that vision that they really buy into?
Yes. And I suppose for myself, it's if you've been in an organization for a long period of time, you are more effective or efficient because they can see how quick you can get things through. When new staff come, it takes them a while to get that. So it's that environment.
Yeah, it becomes very alluring, doesn't it? Like you can see, even Simone from that comment there around, you're selling them that vision. I think you said, when you're working for an ambitious organization, I've written here that unattainable dream, which for some people, that's a really attractive thing to continue to pursue, right? Particularly if they're very goal oriented, give me a hard job, I'm up for it. It can be very, very alluring. So we need to put in, I don't even want to say it because I don't like saying it, but we do need to put in those kind of boundaries and those goalposts. That's because I don't work very well with boundaries and structure, right? But we kind of need those, just like funnel the energy, not curb the energy, not reduce it, but kind of just channel it in a direction that's actually going to promote high performance, but not at a significant cost. So I love that. So we've, from those three call outs, identity, perfectionism's come out, and that those attainable or unattainable dreams. Love it. All right. You'll have your own. And if you prefer to pop it in the chat, please do. Some things that I have that are traps are, I used to get this second wind. I don't get it anymore, thankfully, because I'm in bed. But what I used to do is I used to kind of sort the whole family out, and we'd be, my husband and I would be like, right, what jobs do I need to do to get ready for tomorrow morning? And then it would be about 9:45. And rather than going into bed, then I'd go, well, this is my time now, so I'm just going to scroll, just going to watch a show, I'm just going to make a tea, I'm just going to do this, and then it used to get to 11:30, 12 o'clock, and then sometimes I'd go, oh, I forgot to respond to that email, or I forgot to do that thing, so then I'd come back in and kind of get on. So that trap for me was almost following the energy of the second wind, and it was fake energy. It was just that my mind, and I'm going to go into this in a second, but because it had time to pause, it would start to think about all the other things that I need to do. And then I would have this fake energy around, oh, I better respond. Oh, gosh, that's a good idea. I better actually write that out. It'd be 11:30. Let's face it, I wasn't doing great work, right? It was just this kind of almost wanting to continue to produce. So that's a performance trap for me. All right. We're going this way. All right. So what is it costing us? These are some statistics, globally and Australian statistics. I like to put some research in. You've got all the sources there if you want to go in and have a little bit more of a look. So when from my board work, I will often, as a board, we often need to look at work cover premiums because they're big organisations and these work cover premiums are ginormous, massive, massive cost line to budgets in organisations. And over the last 8 years in particular that I've been on boards, I can see that our work cover premiums are increasing quite significantly. That's irrespective of which board. This is not data from the organisations that I've been on. This is data from SafeWork here in Australia. So mental health claims have nearly doubled in 10 years, up 97% over the last decade. This costs employers over $500 million per year. Huge, right? Forget the cost, because yes, that is an impediment, and to boards that's significant because it's not a line item we like to see. But today, and always actually, I'm much more interested in, well, what's the impact to the individual? What we're seeing in work cover claims in particular, and this is data from SafeWork, is that work pressure is the second biggest cause after bullying of mental stress claims. We are seeing them skyrocket. You might have data that supports that also in your organisation. I don't know. Pop it in the chat. Let me know if you do. So that's work cover data. Then we get to burnout. Back in 2019, I remember exactly the moment when the World Health Organization said, you know, burnout, this thing we've been talking about, it's actually a syndrome. We're categorizing it as a bona fide syndrome. I remember exactly the moment because I was like, thank goodness, right? Because now we can actually validate that it is a real thing, and we don't, you know, we can actually support people properly because the World Health Organization is telling us that it's a real thing. Beyond Blue, this is recent, so a year ago now, did an Australian study, and they found that 1 in 2 Australians are experiencing workplace burnout. And globally, and this is data from Gallup, 76% of employees experience burnout at least occasionally. So the good news about that is that once we experience it, we don't have to stay in it. But if we don't treat it, like any illness, it gets worse, right? So I reckon that this is not great when I look at it. And in fact, when we think about burnout, the other thing which is really interesting, so burnout is a predictable response based on 6 things. The first one is workload, which is the obvious one. So when we think, if someone in our team maybe says, oh, I'm feeling like I'm burnt out, the obvious thing we go to is workload, but it's not workload. Workload is 1 of 6. Number 2 is the level of control that the person has over how they work and their work. So to what extent can they exercise a level of control? The third one is reward. Do they feel adequately rewarded? That is not always monetary reward. That might be, you know, the environment. It might be any other workplace condition that you can think of. Is it a, you know, nice environment? Do we look at, you know, ways for our team members to connect to community? All those kinds of things. The fourth one is community. You know, I was talking to someone this morning. I'm coaching them at the moment. They said to me, Rita, I really want to feel more connection, more collaboration, but I am only required to go into my office once a week. And as a result of that, and when I do go in, she said, everybody's sitting there on Teams calls. So that sense of community is actually really important to our sense of well-being, and therefore, you know, it helps us to avoid burnout. The fifth one is fairness. So when we feel that fairness is compromised, that can also contribute to burnout. And the last one is values alignment. So when there is a misalignment with the individual's values and the organizational values, that can also contribute to burnout. Now, I don't know about you, but I was really surprised that it is beyond workload. And maybe that's just my naivety because I don't normally work in the space of burnout. But there's those 6 key things are huge in terms of all these contributing factors that can actually contribute to our sense of well-being and, unfortunately, burnout. So it is not an individual problem. It's an organizational one when you think about those 6 things. And when our ability to control any of those 6 things, or when really any of those 6 conditions are compromised, it can contribute to burnout. Today's not about burnout, but I need to mention it because if we don't take that pause and really create that deliberate rest in leadership or in any of our roles really, then it can lead to burnout. All right. So now I want to go into the neuroscience. So we have created a high performance trap, right? Across any corporate domain globally, right? Not just Australia. It's not just an Australian problem. We have created a high performance trap. The reality is, though, that our brains were never designed for constant performance. They were not designed for 3 or 4 hours sleep. And I'm going to take away in case there's insomnia or any other health issues that are causing, sleep deprivation. Our brains were simply not wired for this. I went to Italy 3 years ago. My family is Italian. I'm born here. My brother was born here, but my family's Italian. And we went to Italy. It was September. And we were driving around Sicily, and we happened to, we got into Sicily. So we flew in from Rome, and I think we landed, we picked up the car from the airport about 11:30 in the morning, and we made our way down to Agrigento, which is in the south really. It's kind of in the middle. I was going to say southwest, not really, of Sicily. And it was about 1:30 in the afternoon, September, which is not massive tourist season, but still busy enough. It was dead quiet. And we just looked at each other as a family and went, are we in the right place? Like, what is going on? This is meant to be touristy, right? The small town of Agrigento woke up again at about 4 p.m. And I'm not saying woke up as a metaphor. They literally woke up again at 4 p.m., right? This concept of a siesta or a whatever, who can sleep, right? Between 1 and 4 p.m. I'm not advocating you do that either. But this concept of rest, when it's built in culturally, how wonderful is that? Right? I'll never forget that day because I seriously thought I was in the wrong place. Daniel Kahneman's work. Is anyone familiar with Daniel Kahneman's work? It's this little beauty, Thinking Fast and Slow. Have you seen any of that? This is a great read, and I highly, highly recommend this as put it on your top 10 list as a leadership read. This is a brilliant book because what it does, it explains why our brains work really well when we do certain thinking and when our brains work really well and what we need for what Daniel calls system 2 thinking. This is a neuroscience I want to take you through. So our brains were never designed for constant performance. There are 2 ways that our brain operate predominantly in terms of systems, right? So it's either system 1 thinking, which is fast, automatic, reactive, low effort, autopilot. Get in the car, been driving for 30 years, you kind of know what to do, right? System 2 thinking is much slower. It's deliberate, it's analytical, and it requires much higher effort. This is not AI-able. That's not even a word. That's not a word, but hopefully you know what I mean. We can't, system 2, AI can support us with that, but we've got to do the grunt work, right? Now, if you look over into the right-hand side, on the right-hand side of that screen, our most important work requires system 2 thinking, but it's hard. It's hard, right, to get into this zone because you need time. You need focus time, you need time to crunch data and to think and to ponder and to write and to reflect. But when we engage in system 2 thinking, we do better strategic thinking, problem solving, planning, decision making, coaching conversations if you're a leader, executive conversations with your peers if you're on a leadership team. We manage complexity better. Now, I don't know about you, but in all the clients that I'm working with at the moment, complexity and adaptability are the 2 key things that are coming out in every single conversation. They say change is coming through thick and fast. We can't even cope with the pace of it. And we actually need to ensure that our leaders are better at managing complexity and they need to be more adaptable. That is work, that's important, but it requires system 2 thinking. Now, you can see system 1 thinking, right? It's much easier to default. And when you're tired, when you're sleep deprived, when you're low on time, when everything's too hard, we just default to system 1 because it's easier. So we get lost in our inboxes for 90 minutes and think that's really productive work. We delegate, we have quick conversations, we ping someone on Teams and do all sorts of things. It's not that it's not important work, but it's not that focused work that it requires time. So the challenge for us, as you can see there, is that it's easier for us to go on autopilot. And when we don't have that rest and pause, we will default to autopilot because it requires less energy. System 2 thinking requires a lot more energy. But so as it says there, under pressure fatigue, even experienced leaders are more likely to default to system 1 because it's familiar and it's easy and we don't need to think as hard, but it still gives us that sense of productivity without the impact that we need to have, particularly at more senior levels of leadership. Without pause, that system 2 thinking is completely compromised. I'm going to pause for questions. If you have any, please feel free to unmute or pop them in the chat. Is that making sense to people so far? So system 1 and 2 thinking, when we're really busy not thinking, autopilot, we will default to system 1. Bigger thinking, which is actually going to create the change and help us manage complexity and do all those things, requires system 2 thinking. But to engage system 2 thinking, we need to be rested. Okay.
Yeah, so, Rita, can I just say,
yes, please, Anthony.
So I hadn't seen this conceptualization before, and I quite like it. This is not really a question, but I think one of the things that I struggle with is how much of that system 2 thinking do you need to do to inform the faster thinking? You kind of got 20 decisions you have to make a day, and it's hard to kind of, you need time and things, you need more information and you need the context to make decisions. And, in a day, you might get enough information, or over a week, say, you might get enough information to kind of make 5 or 6 of those decisions. But then if you get too bogged down in every little detail, you kind of end up not making the decisions you need to make. So that's a trap I find difficult to.
Yeah, that's a really, really good one. And thank you for calling that out, because I think it's such an important question. One does influence the other, but as I heard your reflection there, the other things that were popping into my mind are the capability of those around you and also the quality of the system that you create or that you're part of. So if you've got team members, either your own team members because you're the leader, or peers that work with you that have a really good level of capability and everybody knows what they're there to do, knows how to do it, and is collaborating, right? That helps. The fatigue that comes from system 2 thinking, because it is taxing, it's also energizing, but you've got a buffer around that because everybody's engaging it, so it feels lighter. That's the first thing. The second thing is the system that we're working in. So when we have very complex system dynamics in organizations that actually impact decision making, very lots of levels of bureaucracy, systems that are full of tension where things just don't happen easy. You get out of a conversation thinking, oh my gosh, that's the 6th time we've had that conversation, we're still not getting to where we need to. They're things that are also very taxing. So there's just 2 thought bubbles, Anthony, that come to mind. I'm not sure if that helps, but I think for me, upon reflecting on what you're saying, it's the system that we're working in, but it's also the capability of those that we're working with. Really good call out though. And one that I'm going to sit with. I think that's a really important question, like how does one inform the other? So to take this, I guess, a little bit further, and we're still saying on neuroscience, but also looking at the high performance, many leaders, as it says there on the right-hand side, we believe that I need to work harder to perform better. So I need to work longer to get to, Anthony's point, to the 20 things. I need to work harder. If I sit here for 15 hours, surely I'm going to get a better return on my investment. You don't. You get the law of the diminishing effect, I think it's called, or something like that. What neuroscience encourages us to do is to actually reframe it, and I need to protect my cognitive capacity to think better. So my cognitive capacity is almost a resource that I need to be actively thinking about so I can actually do better work. Now, this is where we get into for some of us, it's a mindset of I'm not working hard enough and therefore I'm lazy. I don't know about you, but I grew up in a family where having a little rest on the couch was not something celebrated. In fact, if mum saw you doing that, she would come up to you with a broom and she would hand you the broom and say, get up and sweep the floor. Like, it was just not the done thing, right? We were very, very, it's hardworking, working class family, not educated. So we just work hard, right? Mum and dad. For my brother and I, it's been very different. But we still have those values are still what's been embedded. It's very hard to change that mindset, right? When as a 8-year-old, it's like, oh, I've got to sweep the floor. I can't just sit here and watch Bugs Bunny. Those Bugs Bunny cartoons used to be on in the middle of the day. That doesn't happen anymore. So when cognitive resources become depleted, when we get tired, we default. So this is a bit of an extension of that system one thinking. We take mental shortcuts. We default to habits and assumptions. And what are we doing now, by the way, in terms of taking mental shortcuts? What are we doing more and more of?
Using AI.
We're using AI. We'll just go and ask chat. We'll just chuck it into Claude. We'll see what Copilot says on that. And then we go shopping for the best. Oh, or maybe there's Perplexity or whatever the system. And then we go shopping, almost like which AI tool is going to tell me the best answer. And maybe I'll just take a little bit of everything, right? That's a mental shortcut. It's also creating atrophy in our brains, by the way. Like our brains are shrinking. There's the early research on that is last masterclass. I covered that in AI. Today's not about that. But we are becoming reactive more than intentional. We're choosing that, easy over effective. So the quality of our leadership and the quality of our thinking, the quality of our results, therefore what we're executing and implementing, is totally dependent on our ability to engage in system two thinking, but to do it well, and to do it in a way which is actually still with a pause and not, in a really intentional way. All right. Let's move on. This is more neuroscience. I hope you're up for the neuroscience today. It's a little bit more on it. Our brains, so this is an article and you've got the research there if you want to delve into it, but our brain has a network that is activated specifically during rest, and it's called the default mode network. Now, if you go into Vinod's article, it's a great article. You can nerd out on all the brain scans, but basically what it does is it shows different activities that people do and their regions of the brain that are lighting up, right? When the people are doing different things. It's quite good. You can see it in color on the PDF. It's quite good. And the article is publicly available too. You don't need to be part of a university. But we can see that when this default mode network is activated, it helps us with insight, creative thinking, memory, consolidation. So that's where you go, oh yeah, I do remember that I read that thing and I do remember the insights from that thing. And self-reflection, which is a huge part, right? I spend a lot of my time talking about self-awareness. So, and we need to be more self-aware. Yeah, great. But if we are not accessing and having this default mode network light up because we're not resting, it actually impacts our ability to be self-aware and self-reflective. So we want this default mode network doing exactly what it needs to do. But in order to do that, we need to engage in rest. As you can see there on the side, it's linked to wise decision making, etc. But the most important thing that I really want you to take away from this is that rest is necessary for better quality thinking. It's not lazy. And you may be like me, having grown up in a house where rest was not celebrated. It was seen as lazy. And that is something that I have to actively unlearn all the time. All the time. Yesterday, I was watching Australia play Turkey in soccer, and I was very tempted. I was just like, oh, I'll just sit here because it's a 2-hour game and I'll just kind of like bash out some stuff. And I was sitting there with my family and I didn't. And I'm like, go me, pat on the back. And I just sat there and ate those malt sticks. Gee, they were good. They're bad, but they're good. Those little, and I just had those with a cup of tea and I thought, this is fabulous. And I rested. So go me. And it's important to actually, when you do it, to go, yeah, that was good. And gee, I can sit through a movie or sit through a TV show or do something without having to have the laptop doing stuff, right? It sounds even silly to say it. I'm half embarrassed as I say it to you, but this is about years of undoing this thing in my head that said that rest is lazy. All right. So let's keep going. I've got an athlete there on the screen for you because now in the chat, I'm going to ask you a question and I'm after 4 figures from you, percentages. Could you please have a guess at the way that an athlete spends their time across these 4 different categories? So training, rest, recovery, and performance. Training is when they're actually doing the thing like training. So this person might be running, might be training as a runner or training as something else. Rest is when they are actually engaging in sleep downtime. Recovery is when an athlete would be engaging in physio, maybe deloading where they're not trying to smash the next personal best and recovery, active recovery, and then performance. So across those 4 categories, could you please just guess what the percentages would be for an athlete and pop them in the chat, or unmute if you can't be bothered typing it. So we have training, rest, recovery, and performance. I'm going to pop them in just in case. So training, rest. I'm not going to give you the answers yet. And performance. These are our categories. What do you reckon they are? 40, 25, 25, 10. Thank you, Fiona. 50, 30, 10, 10. Yeah. Yeah. Very good. 30, 30, 20, 10. Pop them in as you go through, or as you're thinking about it. If you don't want to think about it, you just want the answers, I'm going to give you the answers right now. Thank you, Anu. The average athlete spends 50% of their time training, 35% in rest, 10% in recovery, 5% in performance. Well done, Fiona. Fiona got the 5%. 5% in performance. Now, I don't think we're athletes. I don't know if anyone's an athlete. I know that we would spend much more than 5% of our working week working, right? So take this with a grain of salt. This isn't just work 5% of your time. Wouldn't that be lovely? There is a book called The 4-Hour Work Week. Maybe we could achieve the 5%, but that is to give you an understanding that even athletes that are, getting the, becoming the absolute best in their category, in their professional category, they still, between training and rest, it's at 85% just between those two. So the statistics are 50, 35, 10, 10, 5. So if you think about, and we, in terms of splitting or translating that into a corporate metric, we would need to look at, so what's training versus performance? Like we could probably combine that. So training and performance might be 55% because we're actually, doing the job through that. But in terms of rest and recovery, it's still 45%. So it's looking more like half-half. I don't know if your week's half-half. For me, it often feels like I'm working much, much, much more than I'm resting. Is anyone surprised by that? Those percentages? It's an invitation to really have a think about how you are spending your time. And even, as I said, those that are, at that national and Olympic level, global level, they still have a huge, huge, huge proportion of the time where they're just thinking about their game plan, they're resting, they're recovering. They're not always performing and not always training. They are incorporating it as part of their performance cycle, which is really where I want to go to. And you've got a reference there to where that research is from. Oh, I've lost you on the screen. There we go. Everyone's back. All right. So now let's take a breath. This is now, I want to get into some practical tips and tricks in this last little bit that you can use. In 2022, I came up with this model and then we featured it in the book, You Are How You Lead. And it's a model that I still take leaders through and think it's a easy one to remember if you remember the word aria. So aria in Italian means breath. To take a breath is to take un po' di aria, we would say, a little bit of air, right? And if you think about where, operas are often performed in those large, the arias, not the ARIA Music Awards, that's something different here in Australia, but it's to take that breath, to take aria. Now, the way that this model works is that we go awareness, so we become aware of the problem or the thing that we need to work on, the challenge that we're facing. We then go into reflection. So this is, kind of, let me think about this. Let me think about all the different perspectives that relate to this thing that I now need to work on. We then look at, well, what insights have I got from that reflection? And then we move to action. But most of us go awareness to action. So most of us go down awareness to action as opposed to that reflection and insight. And when we do awareness to action, that is completely system one thinking. So Daniel Kahneman, if you have a look at his research in the book and subsequent articles that have been written, thousands of them, When we go awareness into action, we're just going into system one thinking. We're quickly understanding the problem. We're not really understanding it well because we're like, oh, these are the kind of the hits that I need to understand about this. And then bang, I go into my action, what I need to do about it. System two thinking, which is what we need for that kind of bigger thinking piece, is where we need to go into reflection and insight. That helps us with this system two thinking. So you might, as you're hearing me, and I want to finish up on this piece to get to some other stuff, but you might be thinking about, are there any decisions that I've made in the last week or month where maybe I have gone awareness into action? I haven't gone through that awareness, reflection, insight, and action. And a takeaway I'd love for you to think about after this, and I'm sorry if it's going to annoy you for the rest of the afternoon, but I kind of want it to annoy you because I want you to think about this. I'd love you to think about, if I was to go through this full process with that thing that I worked on, would I have had a different outcome as opposed to going straight from awareness into action? Would it have looked different for me, either for you or for those that you work with or for the other stakeholders that are impacted by any decisions made? So the ARIA is a reminder to take a breath. Don't go straight into awareness action, not AA. We're going to ARIA, right? Awareness, reflection, insight, and action. All right. I said to you early on today that I can't give you more time. I'm very sorry about that. But energy management is the new time management. You've probably heard me say this before if you've done anything with me. Energy is the resource you need to manage, not your time. Because time is finite, your energy is not. Your lifestyle is what's going to create more energy for you. So I'll let you read through that. I'm interested if you've got any additions to this, because this I came up with this probably 2 years ago, maybe now, if not more. There's some energy zappers there, the things that are the usual suspects on things that tend to kind of take our energy, deplete it, and then some things that create our energy. Are there any additions that anybody would add? You might want to give it to somebody as a tip, particularly on energy creators. Is there anything else you're doing that you think, yeah, that really works for me? In my mug, this is actually my daughter's mug, but I love it. Her friend bought it for her from Norway, and I stole it. I love it. I have Rooibos tea in here, which I never used to drink, but my caffeine was out of control because I was constantly chasing the energy spike. Oh, see, I don't drink Red Bulls, but I do drink coffee. So I was constantly chasing the energy spike, but now I still have a few coffees a day, but I drink Rooibos in between. Does anyone else love Rooibos tea? Oh, Amber's like, hard no. It's nice. Well, it's an acquired taste.
What is it?
Oh my God, it's like a South African tea. Is anyone South African on the call? It is. Actually, I think I will. Oh gosh,
Never heard of it.
I've even lost my screen. Let me go back. I will pop it in the chat because it's great. You can just find it in the supermarket, and it's got this beautiful woody kind of taste, but it's caffeine free. I think it is that. I think. Don't quote me. It might be different. Doesn't matter what brand you get. It's good. I'm not saying that because I'm affiliated with a Rooibos tea, by the way, today. But anyway, that's an energy creator, right, for me. I have different playlists that I will use depending on the work that I'm doing. Some work requires zero music. Sometimes, in fact, I get in the car, and if I've got a 10-minute drive somewhere, I will do that drive in silence. A health coach I'm working with at the moment, she is encouraging me to not listen to podcasts when I walk, and I haven't been able to commit to that yet, and she would be very mad at me. No, she wouldn't. But she's saying stop the external stimulation. Just walk mindfully, because I don't meditate. She can't get me to meditate. Not that she's really trying to, but because I don't do that, she's trying to create mindfulness, and even through just walking without any stimulation, any music or any podcasts. Anyway. Any other additions? I've given you a couple there, probably too many. You've learned more about Rooibos tea than you want to. And all right, so they're energy creators, energy zappers. Think about these. Remember, we can't control time. I can't give you more time, but your deliberate attention to what's zapping my energy, what's creating it, is going to help you to create more energy. You will feel that you've got more time because things will feel effortless and like there's no tension in it, right? So it will feel better for you to do that, but there's no additional time it's added. Yeah, beautiful. Exactly, Simone, the music. A bit of Eminem. I love a bit of an Eminem to create. I know, if people are like, Rita, are you serious? Yeah. My 11-year-old is like, you can't like Eminem because I like Eminem. And I'm like, well, firstly, you shouldn't like Eminem. You're only 11. But mum liked it way before you did. Dude, before you were even a twinkle in my eye, mum liked Eminem. Anyway, that's an energy creator. All right. I've been, some of you will have seen this diagram with me. I am really, really, really happy that this diagram is actually backed by the research. So there is, Schwartz and Lower wrote a book, and it's called, or an article rather, it's called The Power of Full Engagement. And in that research, they say that our performance is determined by how well we manage across 4 different dimensions: physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental. Now, this model is called Work Well, Live Well, and I introduce it in all of my Deliberate Leader programs because we talk a lot about energy, right? So in order for us to create more energy, we've really got to mindfully think about these 4 different domains. It is research backed. So this is not just because Rita said, right? I think it's really, really important when it's research backed. So when we can manage across these 4 different dimensions, we create more energy and we feel better. Things become frictionless, right? So what are you consuming? What are you learning? Is there something you've got on the go that's mental? What are you grateful for? For me, this is spiritual and emotional. So just tapping into what you're grateful for, even if it's, I'm really grateful that the sun's come out a little bit because it's warming the room that I'm in. Something as simple as that. What are you doing for your body every day? So that's that physical movement, whatever that means for you, whatever expression you are, able and capable of doing and that you enjoy doing. And then finally, what activities soothe your soul? Absolutely anything, right? And that's spiritual in the research. Is it listening to music? Is it cuddling your dog? Is it going out and spending some time in the sunshine? Whatever it is, right? So if you can do just one of these things in all of these categories every day, and it can last 10 seconds, 20 seconds, it doesn't need to be 60 minutes on each thing, you will create more energy for yourself. And these little micro actions, if you like, create that sense of pause and that sense of rest. All right. So I want to leave you with this. What if we understand that rest enhances our performance? What if? What if we actually go, you know what? Rest is actually going to be the thing that enhances my performance. It helps me perform to a high level. Rest fuels performance, reflection fuels insight, and recovery fuels that resilience. The pause fuels the perspective. And if we can just have that as something that we think about regularly, I reckon we've got the opportunity to actually integrate rest more deliberately in how we lead. What are you taking away from today? In the chat, please, if you could. I would love to know what has really, what are you curious about? What are you taking away? What are you going to do differently as a result of this masterclass and your 60-minute investment? It also helps with accountability. There's some really good research that helps when we are accountable to a bunch of strangers on a Zoom call with Rubu's tea in the chat, we are more accountable. We are likely to do that thing. Great, Simone, excellent. Pause for perspective, Teresa, excellent. Create more energy, Anu, yes. Yeah, energy, yeah, beautiful. Love it. And now that you've told a bunch of strangers these things, you need to go and do them, right? Do we have hand on heart commitment that you will do these things? No one's putting their hand on their heart. Yeah. Maybe, hopefully. Beautiful. All right. Really important because you've obviously invested the time. And this is what helps you kind of integrate it, share it. These are our Deliberate Leaders areas of focus. We are so passionate about these things. We talk about these things all the time: energy, performance, and relationships. These are our modules that sit within our Deliberate Leader program. I know some of you have attended or even attended in workshop form, but this is just to give you a little insight into what we do. And we love doing this work. We do it with organizations all over the country, and we love it. And so if there's an opportunity to, if something kind of, you go, oh, that'd be good, we'd love to know a little bit more about that, then please get in contact. We would love to have a conversation with you. That's our little QR code. So you can get in contact easily. If any of you are interested in Rita, I just want to have a chat to you about this. Please always feel free to just have a chat. I love having a chat. You know that I can't shut up even for 60 minutes. I could talk underwater. But I'd love to know what's happening in your organization, what's getting in the way of high performance. And if there's something in today's presentation that you think, oh, we could do a little bit more in that space, then just give me a call or book in using the QR code. Thank you very, very much, everyone. No time for Q&A. It's just a story of my life. I can absolutely hang around if you do want to ask a question, or if you want to make a comment or anything. But thank you very, very much for giving me an hour of your very precious time today. I've loved having you. I love when it's a little bit more intimate because we can kind of go around the topics and get through everything. Thank you for coming along today. I'm here if you want to hang and ask a question.
Thanks, Rita. I have to get off for another
No
call.
worries. No worries. Thank you.
Very
Thanks
good.
for your
Thank
time
you.
today.
See you soon.
See you, Amber. Thank you. See you, Anu.